Is where this groundhog supposed to come out and see his shadow or not see his shadow, and that's supposed to tell you whether we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter. Now, I have had this discussion with people before about the 6 more weeks of winter, and people, I'm talking about adults, have actually acted as if whether the groundhog sees his shadow or not will really determine whether we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter or not. And I'm here to tell you that has, oh man, absolutely nothing to do with it. I hate to tell you that. I know a lot of you don't want to hear it. You love tradition. You believe in tradition. And I'm okay with tradition, but, I'm kind of fond of the truth too. You got to squeeze a little truth and some facts, and I don't mind science getting in the way of a bogus theory or a phony, ridiculous tradition. This tradition we have of Groundhog Day is pretty harmless. It doesn't matter. I just want to let those of you who are not quite sure that it's not real, okay? It doesn't matter if the groundhog actually sees his shadow or not, because winter is 6 more weeks. There's 6 weeks left to winter, whether the groundhog sees his shadow or not. So there's 12 months in a year. There's 4 seasons. You do the math. All seasons are 3 months. So if you got 4 seasons and you put those into 12 months equally, all seasons are 3 months. So technically there's 6 weeks of winter left anyway. Doesn't matter if that groundhog sees the shadow or not. There's 6 weeks left of winter. Now, whether the groundhog sees the shadow or not, it might start to get warm early. You never know. Okay, that's the weather. I don't know whether it's going to get warm early, but all I do know is that every season is 3 months. Okay? You got summer, fall, winter, and spring. All 3 months. I once had some idiot. He was a dumb guy. He was a friend of mine too. I mean, it's kind of funny how friendly I have been with stupid people. I have been friends with some big morons. Maybe, and I've never thought I was that bright of a guy, actually, until I met these other people, and I was thinking, oh man, maybe I should reassess my brain power, because these people are dumber than hell. So I had this buddy of mine, and I think we were adults when he said this. We might have been teenagers, but still old enough for him to know better than to say something stupid. Old enough, more than old enough. And what he said, I'm going to tell you about when we come back after these messages. We're getting close to needing to take another break, so I'm just going to take that break right now. It's not going to be very long. We'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to a man who's almost intelligent, very close. Welcome back to Probably Offensive. One hell of a show. Yeah.
Yes. Back. All right. Anyway, well, what I was talking about before we went to break is a friend of mine who said something pertaining to Groundhog Day that was very, very stupid. And what that was when we were younger, like I said, we could have been in our early 20s. We might have been teenagers. We might have been 18, 19, somewhere around there. But we were young, but not so young. Not like we were 7 or 8 or something like that. He was way old enough, more than old enough to know better than what he said. And that was this. He said, winter is longer than the other months, right? And I thought he was kidding at first. And I said, no. And he's like, yeah, it is. Winter's longer. And this guy I'm talking about is the kind of guy who will argue with you about anything. If he doesn't agree with it, he'll argue with you. He doesn't care about facts, science. All he cares about is that his point of view is different than yours. So he said, winter's longer than the other months. And I said, no, it's not. And he's like, dude. So he starts to get irritated. You could tell that he's getting irritated by the dumb looks on his face. The guy was having, making these faces like a dick face, like, just scrunching his stupid butt face up. And I have to insult the guy because, I remember the conversation. I remember how stupid the conversation was and how irritated this guy was getting. And I'm thinking, you're the one in the wrong, Mr. Bastard. I didn't say that to him at the time. I don't even recall word for word what I said. I just remember we disagreed because he was wrong. Because he said winter's longer than the other months. And I told him, no, it's not. And he said, yes, it is. And he argued like a small child. Like, yes, it is, dude. Winter is longer than the other months. It's colder longer. I said, listen to me, jackass. I'm only going to explain this to you once because you're a grown man. Okay, I might explain it to you twice or maybe even 3 times if necessary if you were a small child. But seeing how you're a grown man, I'm only going to tell you this once. Winter is 3 months. Summer is 3 months. Okay? Fall or autumn, they may call it, is 3 months, and spring is 3 months. All the seasons are 3 months, jackass. Now, this guy stood there for a second looking dumb. He stood there looking dumb. It was like, I'm not talking about how long the seasons are. I'm just saying that it's colder, longer than it is warm. I said, well, maybe the number of cold days sometimes, in the fall, there's some cold days and it makes you feel like it's winter time, but it's not actually winter. Okay? Maybe there's some warm days in the spring that's 80 degrees and you feel like, hey, it's summer. It's not even spring anymore. But it's not. It's still spring. You just got a few warm days in the spring that remind you of summer because they're just as warm as in the summertime. Doesn't mean that the summer is any longer. It's just a few warmer days. There might be some days in the wintertime at the end of it that is 65 degrees and it's warm out and the sun is shining. And you might think, hey, it's springtime, but it's not actually yet. Until the 3 months of winter is over. So I had to explain this to this guy who was a grown man. He was a grown man. I couldn't believe I was explaining something so simple as, something that you learn in school when you're like 8 or 9 or something. This guy was a grown man and was arguing with me about the length of the seasons. So, at that point, I started to feel like I must have some kind of a complex where I'm hanging out with idiots or something to try to make myself look good or something. I don't know, because I have found myself on more than one occasion with people who are, I wouldn't even know how to describe their lack of intellect, except to say they had an extreme lack of intellect. But that didn't bother me until we got into stupid arguments like that about winter and how it's the same length as far as days go, regardless of what the groundhog says, or if he sees a shadow or not. Regardless of that, all 4 months are 3 months apiece. So technically we have 6 weeks of winter left anyway, because on the calendar winter is just not over. And even if the groundhog didn't see his shadow and they said, well, the groundhog didn't see a shadow, we're going to have an early spring. We wouldn't have an early spring. We might have a few warm days at the end of the winter, but we would not have an early spring until that 3 months of the winter technically is over. And that, boys and girls, little tidbit of information has been brought to you by, and no, I'm just kidding. We don't have a sponsor for that. That'd be sweet though if I had a sponsor for that. Just telling you that winter's 3 months. I could really broadcast this show to idiots and they'd be thinking, wow, I didn't know that. This guy is brilliant, man. But there's one thing I forgot to mention. I don't think I mentioned this last podcast that I did before this one, is that Cloris Leachman died. Cloris Leachman, the actor, died last week. Now that might be the third death that we was looking for. When I say celebrities, they say that these celebrity deaths happen in threes. I forgot to mention Cloris Leachman. Cloris Leachman was 80 something, I believe Cloris Leachman was 80 something. She died. Cicely Tyson died, and Dustin Diamond. So I don't exactly remember when Cloris Leachman died. Cloris Leachman, for those of you who don't know who Cloris Leachman was, she was an actress. She was a good actress. See, I can only think of right now of, she was been on several TV shows and in several movies as well. But the one movie that I can remember her in right now was a movie called Spanglish. It was an Adam Sandler movie. It was a pretty good movie. I liked it. Adam Sandler was a chef, and he made a lot of money. Cloris Leachman was his mother-in-law. So, if you want to know who Cloris Leachman was, go look up Spanglish and look at the... she played the mother-in-law to Adam Sandler's chef. That movie was pretty good. But anyway, Condolences to friends and family